Yo, this is Adam Gray, the Real 27 guy, and welcome to the Courtside Investor Podcast. When people go crazy for stuff, I almost always sort of shut down. Finally went to him and I was like, listen, I just need to know what you will take for this card. And he gave me a number and I was like, that is so outrageous. That is so much more than I could ever imagine paying on a printing plate. And I was like, would you do X? And he's like, no. And I was like, would you do this? He's like, no. Would you do this? Would you do this? And he's just, no. And I walked all the way up to his asking price, literally to the dollar.
Hey Adam, what's up? How's it going, man?
Dude, it's so good to be here with you. It's a lot earlier in my time than it is yours, but I'm grateful to be able to hang out with you for a few minutes today. How are you doing?
I'm awesome, man. I feel honored and grateful to be talking to perhaps one of the most knowledgeable guy in the hobby relating to basketball cards, especially, which is the stuff I primarily focus on. So it's a great pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you for saying that, and I'm glad that we share the affinity for basketball cards. We've talked a little bit in the past. It seems like we have a lot of similar feelings about a lot of things, which is always a good thing. But maybe in this conversation today, we'll find out some differences too, which is great. But man, it's the best hobby in the world, and I'm glad that you and I are both collectors of the best sport in the world.
Definitely, man. So, I consider you as what I call the historian of basketball card collecting. It's because the amount of knowledge that you have is just astounding, right? So I want to know where does all this knowledge come from?
So I think one of the things my wife has taught me over the course of the last few years, so she believes, and I've never been diagnosed before, but she believes that I have some ADHD. I'm certainly hyper-focused and very, some people would argue I'm pretty obsessive about things. And, basketball card collecting is I don't want to say the lone significant hobby of my life that I've done. I've had a lot of different hobbies, but I've collected basketball cards for, 30 something years. And, most of the time when people tell a story about who they are in the hobby, they'll say, oh, I took a break, or I went away for 20 years. I never went away. People will say, oh, I got into girls. When I was dating, like my first girlfriend, I worked at a card shop when I met her. When I got married, I was, I was working at a card shop. I flipped my way to go to college because my family didn't have a lot of money growing up, and that's how I needed to make money. And when I first got married, I worked at a card shop, and when I first had a kid, I needed to buy a house, so I sold my collection to buy my house. I mean, I just it's always, cards have been sort of intertwined into basically everything in my life, from when I was in daycare, literally, to today, where it's what I do professionally. And so you're kind to say what you said, but I don't think it's because I have I don't think it's because I'm like this incredibly smart person. I think there's probably a lot wrong with my brain, but I definitely have spent more time with it than just about anybody. And I've retained a lot of it, and I love it. And I'm really lucky, I think, today to be able to do something that supports my family and where I basically get to talk about cards. People say, what would be your dream job? I get to talk about cards for a living, which is just crazy, but it's true.
Yeah, that's one thing I find very interesting as well. So aside from all the knowledge that you have, clearly, because like what you mentioned, right, continuous involvement in a hobby, like a lot of us, like what you mentioned, just break in, break out. Even for myself, I was in, and then I was in to TCG for quite a fair bit, and then back into sports. So there is some knowledge a bit of what's going on, but not in kind of in depth that you have. And the point that you mentioned about talking about it, to be willing to share all that information, I just find that wealth of abundance of information for people out there who are not in this space for such a long period of time is just refreshing, I think.
Well, thank you for saying that. I would dive into that a little bit and say, one thing that I think I've done differently, even when I bought and sold cards in the past, and some people don't like this, is I'm extremely open. A lot of times before I buy something, or before I start buying a type of card, I'll talk about it very openly. I used to do this on the blowout forums, and people hate it because it's people are like, oh, you're pumping and dumping. And what's really interesting about that is a pump and dump is when you buy something you talk about it, and then you sell it. You buy something, then you convince the world it's great, and then you sell it. I've done things in exactly the wrong order. I've talked about something, corroborated with people, done it very openly, then gone out and bought it, right? And so that's probably the worst thing that you can do from an investment perspective. But I've got a friend, his name's Chad. He runs the Pack to the Future podcast. You ask Chad, say, what was Adam like when he was young? And he'll tell you a story about how when we were younger, I would go to the card shop. I'd get the newest Beckett magazine. I'd look at the prices. I'd read the articles, and then I'd come home and I'd call him and I'd tell him about things that were happening in my collection. And I'd talk to him about different things that were happening in the hobby. And he kind of got sick of it. He's like, why are you always calling me to tell me about how your cards went up in value? Or why are you telling me, all these different things? And I was just like, well, I just really like it. Like, I like all of it. And this is the thing that I think a lot of people don't get about me is I genuinely really like cards a lot. And,
I can
I had
tell,
a
man.
great,
I can tell.
I had a great career in the world of accounting and investments in the world of private equity and venture capital, and I left it so I could talk about cards for a living. And people may think, "Wow, that's weird," or "That's strange. Why would you do that?" Like, it's because I really like it. My family's pretty well taken care of. We're not super rich or anything, but we've got a good life, and everything's good. And so I'm just doing what I like to do. I have a legit passion for it. It's not just about values or making money. Like, this is what I like. I like cards. If I didn't, Nat Turner said this once, and I loved this line. He said, even if these weren't worth anything, I would like to collect them. And I feel that. I feel that in my life too. I'm very much like I love the history of it. I love talking about it. And what will happen today on this call is we have a certain amount of time that we've said we need to hold to, and I'll be the one who's trying to make myself shut up because I love talking about cards, dude. I do.
Well, I don't find you weird, because I myself have 20 years in accounting, and
Oh,
my last
okay.
10 years before doing cards full time was in private equity as well. So we are on similar boats, but I don't talk as much as you. So I
We're the
guess
same person.
that's where we're different.
We're the same person. When we're not doing this show, I want to hear about what you did for the funds and stuff like that. That would be cool.
Yeah, sure, sure. We can catch up with that on a separate time. Awesome, awesome. So, but you mentioned that you said that you like to talk about cards and then go out and buy it. But the recent acquisition that you did on the Steph Curry printing plate, so that came out of nowhere. Like, I know that you actually created some anticipation. I got a big purchase coming up. It's gonna be the craziest thing that you guys see. And there was a lot of people trying to guess what it was, right? And then finally, when it was revealed, it was a Stephen Curry printing plate. So, to me personally, yes, it's different, it's unique, it's special, and I can see why it means a lot to you. But tell me in your own words, why was this card so special to you?
Okay, man, I love this question. So, goes back a few years. I had never thought about buying a printing plate like this. Not seriously. I had never really thought about a printing plate like this. And then I was on Instagram a few years ago, and I saw the guy who owned it. He posted it, and it's one of those cards, and there's a few of them here and there that just straight up stopped me in my tracks and made me think for a second. And I went, wow, okay. And at that point he had bought it, and he had this like a little bit of the story posted. He had bought it raw. He had actually bought it on like a Japanese website, auction site. And he didn't tell me he wasn't willing to tell me exactly. He's like, well, I paid four figures, but I won't tell you how much. And I was like, you paid four
Uh-huh.
figures? Like, that seems like a pretty good deal to me. And so anyway, he's like, and I'm getting it signed. And I was like, you're getting it signed? I'm not so sure you should get it signed. Are you sure? Like, it's such a good card. But he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get it signed. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then he got it signed, and I just looked at it, and I was like, dude, I think that's the best printing plate in the world. And I thought about it for a while, and I was like, there's the LeBron '03 Topps plate, and there's the LeBron '03 Topps Chrome plates. And then there's this one. And because remember, printing plates started coming out of packs in 1997, but a lot of packs didn't have them. For example, the Tom Brady 2000 Bowman and Bowman Chrome, you'd like those plates to have come out in packs, but they didn't for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
as I just started thinking about it, I was like, man, I love this card. And I love the the Steph Topps rookie from the perspective of like what it means to basketball history, what it means to card collecting history, the transition from Topps and Upper Deck to Panini, and like the sort of controversy around like how they made so few of it. We've never seen there's like so much less regular Topps rookies. We've never seen the Superfractor, all of this stuff. And so anyway, as the last couple years has gone by, and I'm trying to wrap this up into a small condensed package, but it's a really long story. As the last couple years have gone by, I just keep going back to like, man, I want a great Steph rookie. I want something that's different that nobody else has. I want something that's like really unique. And I just kept going back to that one and going, gosh, I see what all the gold refractors are selling for and what the NTRPAs are selling for. I know how expensive those are. And then there's this card, and it's so different. It's the rarest version of his chrome, even though it's not chrome or metallic or anything. It's the rarest of that. It's been signed by him. And then after I bought it, I found out there's a video of him signing it, which is even crazier. So all of it together was like, I have to have this. And so I just kept asking this guy all the time, like, what would you do? What would you do? And finally I went to him and I was like, listen, I just need to know what you will take for this card. And he gave me a number, and I was like, that is so outrageous. That is so much more than I could ever imagine paying on a printing plate. And I was like, would you do X? And he's like, no. And I was like, would you do this? He's like, no. Would you do this? Would you do this? And he's just, no. And I walked all the way up to his asking price, literally to the dollar. He wouldn't do it for anything less. And I was just like, it's one of these moments though, and this is where I'll end this. And this is how I think about my collection. Whenever I look at my collection, I'm asking the question, would I rather have this other thing that's outside of my collection, or this stuff that is within my collection right now that I could use to pay for that thing? And if the answer is yes, I'd rather have that thing, then I should sell this stuff that's in my collection to go get that thing. And so I had to sell some stuff that I had never planned on selling, but I have zero regrets. I'm thrilled to have it. I have no idea if anybody would pay anything close to what I paid for it, but I don't really care that much. I just I own the rarest Topps Chrome Steph Curry rookie card in the world that is known, right? Like we don't know where the Superfractor is. And I'm super proud of that. I love that I own the card. And so yeah, that's the story.
Awesome. I mean, I believe that you have mentioned a couple of times, not just on this Steph Curry, but other cards that's in your collection as well, whereby you had to part certain cards as well to acquire these big pieces, that forms part of the collection. And I know that a lot of people today, they actually struggle to do that. Like ideally they want to keep everything that, they have. And then when something new comes to the door, trading something that they have at the moment is kind of like not the option. They just want to like raise cash some way, but without selling any of the key pieces. And for you, you actually take the time to really strategize what's important to you, and then you actually share with people why it's important, why this one I can't, I got to keep this one and that one can go and things like that. I think you mentioned like you had a John Stockton credentials that it was, so close to you, and the way you say it as though like the car was like a part of you, and then you had to, make part ways with it. It's like a bad breakup or something like that. It's quite funny.
So you just highlighted something that in two different places that I think is important. Like this Stockton credentials card. So it was the Stockton credentials, the Tim Duncan logo man. A bunch of really rare Harry Potter stuff, an important Kobe Bryant autograph, and then my entire Eminence base set from 2014, which was the toughest part of the whole thing. So all of those things I had to let go of to get that card. I didn't buy any of those to sell. I never bought those thinking I'll sell those. I bought those because I felt like that was those items were things that were going to be important in my collection. I bought the Stockton like for $2,000 like 6 years ago. The Duncan's a relatively recent pickup, like just a couple of years ago. But all that other stuff I bought like the Eminence set I put together from 2015 to like 2018. Like I've owned that stuff forever, and I didn't intend on selling it. But again, it really is. You highlighted this point earlier, and we're highlighting it again. It's about actually caring. Like I actually like cards. I actually don't want to sell them. But when you're faced with a tough decision, then you just have to make a decision. Am I gonna keep this stuff that I want, or am I gonna go get this other thing that I want more? And I don't have a lot of money. I don't. So people are probably like, that's not true. Like you've got these great cards and stuff, but no, it's true. Like every card that I have right now goes back to an original investment that I made right
Yep.
after we bought our house back in 2010, 2011. I started with basically $2,000 between cash and cards. And I said, what can I turn this into? That's it. Everything is from that original. That's like the deal with my wife. I'm not going to spend money on card stuff that is from
Right.
outside of that. It comes from that original investment. And, I wish that I could, but even like, again, not to bring up Nat multiple times in this, but he's sold lots of stuff, right? Like
Yep.
even the people who seem like they have the most money in the world, those guys have to sell stuff too, because it's gotten so expensive. It seems like we're
Agree.
talking
I
about
definitely agree.
7-figure cards all the time.
Yep.
6-figure cards are like a
Yep.
daily occurrence. It happens all the time. And so you have to be, no matter how much money you have, you have to be really smart about how you do this and really choosy and really strategic about how you get from point A to point B. And I just, I have a friend who told me this. It's like, Adam, longevity is undefeated in this hobby. And there's some real benefit to the fact that I've just been doing it for so long and changing these things for so long that
Yep.
it's like, it's given me some real equity to do some cool things.
For sure, man. I mean, we're gonna dive into talking about your collection, right? Recently, you posted on your IG your collage of your very best cards with the Steph Curry in there as well. So, and maybe I think you mentioned many times in your previous videos or even in your Instagram posts, this was a labor of love over a long period of time, many years, and there were multiple stories on every single card that you actually picked up, but in general, as an overall, is there like a blanket philosophy, in terms of how you are curating your collection? Like, is there a theme to it? Like what kind of cards that you want to be in your collection?
So I like Spanish Ron's line that he's a rare card collector. I like that line. I like to say that. I feel that too. But I would add to it, like, because people are always like, why do you have like lots of different players and lots of different sets? What's the purpose of that? And that's because I'm a fan of the history of basketball cards. Like, I love the history of basketball cards. So my objective is to create the single greatest collection in a diverse way. Like, it's deliberately diverse. There is such a thing as too many Michael Jordan cards in my collection. And I know people are like, that doesn't make any sense. Jordan's the GOAT. I want as many Jordan cards as you can. And that's great for other people.
Right.
But for me, I want a specific percentage. And you might say, well, shouldn't you want the most Jordan cards? Well, I like Kobe a lot. Like, I
Right.
feel closest to Kobe. MJ's the GOAT, but I feel closest to Kobe. I feel like we knew him. And so Kobe for me is number one. Steph and MJ are 2 and 3 in whatever order you want to do it in. And then after that,
Uh-huh.
it's sort of different as far as like how close I feel to those guys. And those things are subject to change, right? Also, with sort of mixed in within that, and I know I'm getting a little bit more specific than you probably wanted, but like there's also like elements to my history with basketball that are important. So like I own one of the best John Stockton cards in the world. That's
Yep.
in my collection. And then there's different things like there could be too many logo men in my collection. There could be too many vintage cards. There could be too many autographs. There could be too many non-autographs. I'm always trying to sort of get it to be the best version of the collection it can be. And every once in a while, you'll have these moments where you'll go, ooh, can I take these couple of things and get that thing? Or sometimes can I take that thing and get these couple of things? But I'm always tinkering to sort of make it the best group that I can. You mentioned the collage, but over the next 40 or 50 days, I'm actually going to count down my cards from my 50th best to my best. And I do that every year so I can sort of keep track in my mind of like how I think about it. Like, I know, I'm going to rank it based on value, and some people don't like that. But what I'm really doing is in my background, I'm thinking, what on here is worth enough or more than I need it to be, so that I can go out and get these other things. And then, like I said, I hold most cards for probably 5 or 10 years and sometimes longer. And so I'm very patient and methodical about like how I move. I'm really, really slow. I might buy 2 or 3 cards this whole year. I might trade for 2 or
Mm.
3 cards this whole year. And that will be a
Right.
successful year for me if I do that.
Right. Awesome. Because I mean, to be honest, right, I think your philosophy in putting your collection together has kind of rubbed on me as well. So, like what you mentioned, a lot of people, when they try to build collections, they of course, they start off by building by their favorite player, right? Whether it's Jordan or Kobe or LeBron. And then maybe they branch it off to, okay, just the autographs or just the patch autos, right? Or maybe something that's serial number or something that's only PSA 10 or something along those lines. Most of the time, it's along those themes. But, when I started to watch more of your content, then I realized, buying into more significant events or significant stories behind seems to be more relevant than just the card itself or the player itself, correct? So
Yeah.
I got one of the podcasts recently where I have the LeBron logo man from the 2012 NT. So, and the host actually asked me, so are you a LeBron fan? So I told him, look, to be honest, I'm actually not a fan of LeBron, but I am a fan of that Miami Heat team that had the
Hmm.
amazing run in that 4 years. And of course, LeBron's the center of it, right? So I was a fan of watching the Miami team during that period. And therefore, LeBron in the Heat jersey is kind of, to me, it's something that I can remember very fondly. And that's why I think the logo man represents, LeBron in his prime during that period, because that's kind of like the best card you can get in this Heat jersey, right? There's no autographed versions of him in a Heat uniform. So I think that's why that card is important to me. And then when I say that, then I think about you, right, on how you look at your collection. And for me, I think that's how I want to build my collection going forward as well.
Okay, I gotta ask you, did you like LeBron when he did the decision and he decided to go to Miami? And did you actively root for him when he was in Miami? I'm really interested to hear how you'll say this, and then I want to tell you what my answer is to that too.
Okay, so to be honest, I wasn't. Okay, but again, I wasn't a real fan of him. I was a Kobe guy like you, right? So, that was the year I think Kobe I can't remember. Did he just win his fifth championship against Boston? I think the year before he went to
Oh,
Miami. I think it was something like that.
it's
And
pretty
then
close.
so I was a fan of. Yeah, I was a fan of Kobe all the while. So, LeBron moving to Miami is more like, look, I just want to play a good guy so I can beat Kobe. Is like, okay, whatever. But the way that the Heat team played, that got me interested in the team, how they dominated the game. So I'm a fan of watching the games, and like how I'm a fan of watching the Warriors play during their title runs in between 14 to 19, around that period, or 14 to 18. So, but for the Heat team, I enjoy watching. Okay, I enjoy watching not just LeBron, Wade as well. Ray Allen and Bosh to some extent, but Wade and LeBron for sure.
So I love how you answered that question, and it was how I was hoping you were going to answer the question. You and I are the same on this too. I didn't. I would I would expand a little bit. I couldn't stand the decision. I couldn't stand LeBron leaving Cleveland, and I'm a big loyalty guy. Like I love guys
Right.
that are loyal, and in him leaving to Miami, I was like, what the crap is this? Like you're going to team up with these other guys. And then like he was like the ultimate heel while he was in Miami. I didn't want them to win. I wanted them to lose.
Right.
And I
Right.
didn't like watching those teams. I wanted Boston to win, and I wanted everybody who played against Miami to win. But here's the really interesting part, okay? I also didn't like Kobe, right? I was a Utah
Okay.
Jazz fan. I wanted the Jazz to break through, and they just couldn't get past him. I hated Michael Jordan. He was my least favorite player ever. I love Karl Malone and John Stockton. I'm live in Salt Lake City still to this day. I love the Utah Jazz. I love those 90s teams. That was the best that we've ever had basketball here. What's really
Right.
interesting, and people don't understand this, some people don't, but you don't have to be a fan of guys when you're younger to then get older and go, gosh, I really appreciate what that moment meant in the
Sure.
history of basketball. And so,
Right.
just like you said, if LeBron and Miami is a significant point in history, what are the cards from that era that I want? Well, the number one card from that era is the gold prism from 2012, LeBron number to 10 that I've tried to get for the last, I don't even know how many years, 10 plus years now, and I've never been able to get it. Now it's last time it sold for like $700,000. So those days are
Right.
gone. But next to that, like you said it perfectly. There are no Heat era logoman autographs of LeBron. They don't exist. And there's only a few Heat era logomen of LeBron, and you've highlighted that. There's one to Immaculate, number to 3. There's 2
Yep.
to National Treasures, number to 5. And I mean, that's basically the whole list. And So, I'm fortunate to have one. You mentioned having yours out of National Treasures, and there's only a few more in existence. And so, yeah, I know I can speak for me and just say I'm really glad to own it. Am I the biggest LeBron fan in the world? No. Do I dislike him? No. Is he one of the greatest players ever? Yes. And do I think that he'll ever have his statistical accomplishments reached? No, I don't think so. I think he'll always be one of the greatest players of all time, and I love owning that card. But for me, that's probably the only really big LeBron that I need. Although honestly, there are a couple other ones that I'd really like to get, and so I don't want to close the door, because there's one or two that I might do some big things for along the way if I ever get the chance. Because he's not only relevant into the history of basketball, but he's so relevant to the history of basketball cards. But yeah, I love your answer there. That was awesome.
Cool. Coming back to your collection, right? So obviously, you put a lot of time in putting together. I can see the diverse types of cards, types of players, and things like that. So without pinpointing to a particular card, is there any concept or any theme that's missing in your collection at the moment?
I would really like a vintage. So this isn't a team, but the concept. I'd really
Yep.
like an elite vintage basketball card, but the one of those doesn't really exist the way that I want it. I don't want something that's just a really cool high grade card. Like,
Right.
I could go buy like a Wilt Chamberlain rookie that's a PSA 9, and that would be mind boggling,
Right.
right? Or
Right.
a 48 Mikan that's an 8, or a Russell that's a 7 or something. I could go do something like that, but it just doesn't interest me in the same way. I owned a Wilt autographed rookie, one of the first 2 that PSA ever graded. And then I
Mm-hmm.
had somebody come and offer me about 5 times as much as I paid for it within a couple months of when I bought it. And ever since I've let that one go, I've thought, gosh, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to fill that high level gap in my
Mm-hmm.
collection again. That's probably the biggest thing that's missing. But honestly, like, every time a really crazy Kobe goes up that I connect with, I just feel like buying that card. And it's been a while. I haven't been able to buy any really huge Kobe's in a while. But
Right.
I've sold a couple that I kind of wish I could have back, but they weren't my best ones. They weren't anything close to my best ones. I just really like Kobe, which I know is not the answer to the question that you're asking, but his of my top 25 right now, I think he's got something like 8 spots, and I'm still like, could I fit in one more? I sort of go back to that over and over again.
You pointed out, that 2000 Ultimate patch, the very first patch auto,
Yes.
right? That's number 8
Yes.
many times that it came at auction recently. PSA 8 sold for 176K or something like that. So, when I ask my friends who are, general Kobe collectors, they're not into the real high end. So, I mean, flawless patch auto is like as high as they get, right? So you're talking about maybe about like 40, 50 grand, that's as high as they go. And when they look at this card, $178,000, a horizontal card, number 8, no doubt, okay, but tiny looking patch, old Kobe auto. It's like, how is this much better than a flawless auto, right? So a lot of collectors really, especially the new ones, really don't get it. But a card like that put in front of you, you just go bananas, right?
I don't know if you know this, but I was the underbidder on that card. So I thought real hard about bidding again too, and I know that a lot of people feel like that sold for a ton, but
Yes.
that's been so. I love your questions, dude. Your questions are all so good. That's been the number one card in my like want list. That card has been the number one card in my want list. And you could have asked me at any time, but I would have said either that or the LeBron 2012 Gold. Those have been like the top 2 cards in my want list for legitimately like the last 5 years. And I would love to have been able to add that, but it was so expensive. It's just going to be real. Like the flawless stuff. The first year of flawless is really interesting to me. After that, they're autographed patches, but they don't. Like they're and I want to be like really honest here, okay? Some of the flawless stuff is some of the best looking cards ever.
Yep.
It's interesting from the perspective that a lot of it's still it's still from his playing days. I really like a lot of it aesthetically, right? But it doesn't stand out to me as like they don't stand out to me as like really significant cards And a
Right.
card has to be significant, not just aesthetically and because it provides you an autograph and a patch. It has to have a bit bigger story than that to be something that I want to put into my collection. You've really hit on this here. This is like a really key thing to who I am and how I collect. And so some people will
Right.
be like, Adam, you could buy like 4 or 5 really nice flawless patch autos for what you almost paid for that Ultimate Collection.
Correct.
And I'm
Correct.
sort of like, why would I ever do something like that? Seems insane to me. Why would I do that when I could go get his very first stamped serial number autograph patch that was ever made, and there's only 8 of them in existence. And by the way, that specific card, along with 3 others, making 4 total, I've either
Yep.
been the bridesmaid on, or I've been like the guy who almost bought it from somebody. I've been close on 4 different copies, actually 3 different copies. And this one, it was the second time. The last time it moved, it was put on eBay back in 2020, and a guy asked me for
Right.
15 grand because I messaged him. I was like,
Right.
"What would you do?" And he said 15 grand, and I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And he never messaged me back because he sold it to
Right.
somebody else, and I never had another chance at it. It was in one of those brick holders. In fact, I still have the picture on my phone.
Right.
I'll bet you I can find it. I'm not going to do it right now. I'll bet you I could find it in 1 minute. I've had that card on my phone. I've wanted it for that whole time because, and I know I've already highlighted it, it's the significance of the card, how early it was made. It was it was a $100 pack. Ultimate Collection was in 2000. And,
Yep.
so it was sort of the precursor to Exquisite. It was the first ultra high-end brand. And do you know how many
Yep.
autograph patches they made in that whole set?
There was like, I mean, how many players you mean, or how many patches in total?
Three total
3
autograph
players,
patches
right?
in the whole
3
set. Yeah.
players.
And
Yep.
it's MJ, which I have the MJ. It's
Yep.
Kobe, which I've been second on 4 times now.
And Garnett. Yeah.
And Garnett's,
Yep.
he's not easy to find, but it's only a few grand, so I haven't really prioritized it the same way.
Mhm.
But like that Kobe card is the perfect basketball card. It's not just about the autograph and the patch, it's about the history. And so, I see what some of these other things sell for, and I sort of like, it blows my mind. That's not one that blows my mind at all. That's one that I look at and I'm like, that should be like a multi-million-dollar card. And I feel, no, you could sort of strike that last line. I don't even care what it's worth. I just really want the
Right.
card, and I wanted it for a really long time. But these other things that are like newer and they pop up all the time, to me, those are just sort of, they're just sort of there. They don't have that story, that rich, awesome,
Right.
like that was the first time they ever made autograph patches where they stamped the serial number on them. Ever. That year was the first time they ever made autograph patch cards. That matters to me so much. So, okay, I know I belabored it, but
All good, man. All
that was a
good.
great question. That was a great question.
Which I'm gonna follow up with another one, right? Just gonna tickle you a little bit. So with the recent sale to secure for the 2006 limited logos for 2.4 million, you saw that one, right? With the Kobe, a little bit of a trophy and things like that. So that went for $2.4 million. So how does that, in your opinion, compare to the Ultimate patch?
I would rather have the Ultimate by a lot. But having said
Right.
that, most Kobe collectors would massively disagree. And I can make the case for it. Exquisite's the best brand. Limited Logos is the most iconic autograph patch set. It was number 24 of 50, meaning that it's the jersey number. It has one of the best patches that we've ever seen, maybe the best patch ever on a Limited Logos. And it is, and it had an inscription that's great. Like all those things together. I said this week on my show, actually. People are like, this card's probably only 100 grand or less than 100 grand. And I sort of shake my head and go, well, people don't really know what they're talking about. This is a really, really big card. And I understand absolutely why it sold for 7 figures. 2.4 sounded like a lot to me, but I don't really know what the highest points of the market are. I don't know those points. I don't really talk to those people a lot. And so like, could I believe that? I absolutely can believe it. But the question you just asked, I love, which is which one would you rather have? Like the thing that matters more to me is the first autograph patch. I care about that way more. So I like it more. I think it's a better card, but that's to my tastes. I understand why most people would disagree with me on that. I do.
Awesome perspective on that one. So it is going to be a topic I'm going to cover in the future, whereby we're going to compare aesthetics, which is what that Limited Logos is, versus historical significance, which is what the Ultimate patch is.
So let me ask you this. Do you think Aesthetically, do you like the that limited logos more than that ultimate?
For sure, aesthetically, right?
What's funny is
But if you look at,
you might think I'm crazy, but I love the aesthetics of that. The Kobe reaching, like it's one of my favorite looking cards ever. I
yeah, I
love.
mean, it's a full pose, going to the rim and things like that. I get all of that, but of course you have to compare not just about the photo, but about the patch itself, the number 24, the inscription, and blah blah blah. But the point of comparing the overall aesthetics versus the historical significance, that's going to be a big discussion because the price point between the two is what 10 about almost 15x or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, not just on this Kobe, but cards going in the future, are we going to value aesthetics 15 times more than historical significance? So that's something that's going to be looked on, something that I'm probably going to investigate further.
Let me take 30 more seconds on this. The
Yep.
reason that it's not even a tiny bit shocking that the limited logos would sell for so much more is because you kind of have to look at it like it's like a one of one, right? It's the
Right.
24 out of 50, it's the patch, it's the inscription. Those things all make it far more of a one of one type thing. And as we've
Mm-hmm.
seen recently, I think you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when I start talking about it. The '03 Ultimate Collection golds, we've seen 3 of the 8 sell recently, and the one that was
Yep.
8 of 8 just far surpassed the other ones. And to
Right.
somebody who's like, to most people, I think would be like, that's insane that people are spending so much for the 8 of 8. But the 8 of 8 is far more of a one of one than people want to think about. And that's the same thing for that exquisite card. And again, I get why it sold for so much more, but your first question is, which would you rather have? And to me, it's like,
Yep.
it's not even close. To me, it's the Ultimate Collection.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So final topic I want to talk about is your channel across the hobby. And I'm not sure whether you realize this, right? I looked this up just before we started. It's exactly 1 year ago that you started your first episode, the one
Cool.
that you cover the auctions, significant auctions. So
Awesome.
your first episode 1 covers auctions between October the 28th to November the 3rd. So it's around this period basically. So it
Cool.
is a 1 year anniversary of the channel.
Awesome. I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah, yeah. So I just want to find out. So, what was your inspiration of doing? Covering auctions. Do you is just something that you enjoy looking at and just wanted to share your views and thoughts of what's going on? Or, tell me why did you go down that route? On doing this across the hobby.
So the reason that I started Across the Hobby specifically was because I need to look at all of the auctions every week anyways to create content on behalf of the auction houses. And I said to
Mm-hmm.
myself, I wonder if it'd be interesting for people to sort of see how I think through these things. And I didn't know whether people would be interested or not. I actually talked a lot to a friend as I was putting it together, and I said, well, what do you think? And he said, I just don't think this is going to work. And I was like, why do you think it's going to work? And he's like, it's just not. He's like, your reels and stuff you do on Instagram are so dialed. You spend all this time producing something that's so quick, but Across the Hobby is
Yep.
like, it is not quick. It is
Long.
long,
It's
and it's
long.
just, yeah, it's so long. It's like the average episode's like an hour and a half, and you're just like thinking like out loud and going through stuff, and you're not super organized in your thoughts. And I just don't think people are going to want to watch that. And I was like, well, gosh, you're not only a good friend, but you're really smart. So you're probably right. And I think to a certain extent he has been right, because it's not that the episodes get a lot of views. They don't. The average episode gets about 800, maybe 900 views. There's some that are like 1,500, and there's some that are like 500 or 600. But the thing that I can say that I like about it, I probably should make it. It's weird. It's part of me thinks I should almost make it into a podcast, but you need the video. I
You
guess
need a
there are
visual.
obviously,
Yeah, you need a visual sometimes for
yeah,
people to look at the card you're talking
and
about.
there are video podcasts now, so I get that too. But like,
Yep.
so I probably could and should do that. But I I I told you the story before we started, and I've told the story a few other times. Um, when I was at National, I don't know how many people it was. It might have been 20 different people come up to me and say, "Hey, Adam, like, I know you do all that other stuff that you do, which is, I think, where most people know me from, like the Instagram reels and stuff like that, and some of the other things that I've done before, Basketball Card Fanatic, and some of the other projects that I've done in the past. But I like these 20 different people came up to me individually and were like, listen, I watch every episode that you do of Across the Hobby. It's what I do every Monday. I love
Yep.
it. Please do not
Yep.
stop. And the reason that they're saying please do not stop is I think people realize, like, I'm not getting paid for Across the Hobby. I just do it because I want to do it and I think people will like it. And
Mm-hmm.
I have to do it anyways, so I might as well sort of talk as I go through it. And my YouTube channel hasn't exactly blown up, but there's certainly there's a few followers there, and every time I post a longer form thing like that now, at least a few hundred people watch it, and for some people it's like one of their favorite things,
Mm-hmm.
favorite pieces of content out there, and those people make it worth it for me because it's not every piece of content has to be I've done reels that are like well into the millions of views, and not because they're boosted. I've never boosted a single reel in my life, and I never will.
Mm-hmm.
But because like the reels are good, I know people like those. The show, the show is not that. The show is about connecting with people in a different sort of way, and both of them have their place. They're both good in different ways, I think. And so that's sort of why I got into it. And I hope that people keep liking it. And if they do, then I think I'll keep making it. I don't mind. I don't mind giving you asked this earlier, like you sort of give away this information for free. I don't really mind at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I love the hobby, and there's a lot of parts about the hobby that I think they're hard for people to deal with. They're unseemly. They're greedy. There's gambling. There's deception. There's all this bad stuff.
Right.
But at the
Right.
core, there's the cards and why the cards are fun to own and collect.
Yep.
There's the relationship building and there's the people. The people is the most important part. There's all
Mm-hmm.
of that stuff. And so if you can highlight those things in a positive way and set aside some of that really the yucky stuff of the hobby, then it's like there's just so much goodness. And I would say 90 something percent is this good part. But like so much of what's highlighted and discussed in private channels and even publicly and on podcasts and things, so much of it's so negative. And
Yep.
I just try to say, okay, let's keep all that stuff out and let's try to focus on the things that I think really are really interesting and fun, and make it educational, like super educational. I'm not the most entertaining guy, especially on YouTube. I try like to be like, hey, here's something you might find interesting. But if I feel like if I can do that, then I can make the world better for some hobbyists. And so I'm just going to keep trying to do that, I think.
Yeah, and end of the day, it's all about the cards, right? So some people do this for fun, some people do this for money, right? So, but end of the day, it's still about the cards, and the way that you talk about it, it just shows that the love and passion they have towards the cards itself, right?
Thanks, man.
Regardless of what's going on out there.
I'm glad you're watching it. It makes me happy to hear
I
that somebody as smart as
definitely,
you
man,
has watched
definitely.
it. That makes me feel great.
One more thing I want to touch on, the top 25 iconic cards, right? So you did that on the survey. You had multiple videos about it. People going back and forth discussing why is this should be in there, why not in there. We've gone through all that. I just want to know from you, right? After going through the entire process, once it's all finished and talking to all these different people, getting all these different opinions, is there any learning or any, point that you got at the end of doing this whole thing that you did not expect, getting this piece of whether it's information, is it advice, is it learnings or whatever, at the end of it, that you didn't expect that you were going to get it before you started the project?
I have to give you credit. Your questions today have been some of the best questions I've ever heard. So thank you. This question's so good. And I was going to mention part of it during the Steph Curry. The moment where I was willing to jump up to his asking price was after I saw the complete votes. And the thing that was shocking to me, I was floored by this, was that the Steph Curry Topps was pretty easily the number one card amongst the community vote. Now remember, we had two different components,
Yes.
the community and the expert vote. The experts didn't have it close. The experts had it either number 5 or number 6, behind all the cards that you would anticipate: the LeBron Exquisite, the Brady Contenders, the Topps Chrome LeBron, And then I can't remember, maybe the Brady Bowman Chrome was fourth amongst the experts. I'm not sure, but amongst the community, the Steph
Mm-hmm.
Tops was pretty easily number one. And remember, we were ranking the cards based on how iconic they were, and we had a specific
Right.
definition for what iconic
Yes.
meant. It's interesting you're asking me about it because we literally finished the book last night. We've
Mm-hmm.
reviewed the proof from the printer and we're ready to go. So it's literally like we've got to figure out what the final steps are, but that book is going to be available for a really reasonable price to anybody here in the next week or so. And that's because
Mm-hmm.
of our awesome sponsors who are willing to put the dollars behind it to make it happen. It is not cheap to make a book like this. It is a nice book.
Mm-hmm.
I did a write-up for every card that's in the top 25. We listed every card that was on the survey in image form. The whole thing I think it's so awesome. It's not, people aren't going to get it and go, this is like life-changing or anything, but I think for the cost, people are going to look at it and go, that is such a cool thing that they made, the Adam and the Gem Raid and our
Yep.
team is made. I'm not that I work for Gem Raid, to be clear. I worked in partnership with Gem Raid on this. But I like, so okay, so now that I've unintentionally just totally plugged my book that's coming out, the Steph Curry was the biggest learning, but with that, the Patrick Mahomes optic rookie
Mm-hmm.
in the community was ranked higher than the Prism was in the community
Right.
vote. And again, the community vote's 450 people who collect cards who just wanted to take the survey, and so they took it. And we took I put hours and hours and hours into that survey. There's probably 50 man hours built into creating a survey that included all the cards that people might want to include, and then allowing them to rank their top 25. So there was like
Mm-hmm.
135 total cards or something, and people could choose and rank their top 25. The Mahomes optic finished ahead of the Mahomes Prism in the community vote, and that was 450 total people who took that. And the reason that that's interesting to me is the same reason that it was interesting to me that the Steph finished so high. I think
Mm-hmm.
it has something to do with that really big, nice portrait, like facial, like, oh, that's who that is. There's something to be said for that. Both of those cards were like shocking to me, how well they performed in the community rank. And I just looked at it and went, wow, maybe there's something there that the community is has sort of like figured out or is sort of decided that the experts haven't really caught on to yet. That was probably my biggest learning.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a couple other things. I have a few more minutes. Do you have a few more minutes to keep going?
Yeah. Just go ahead, man.
I told you I would do this. I knew I would do this. I'm sorry. Okay, so the other things that I learned, I thought people asked me like after they had taken the survey, what do you think is going to finish number one? And I said the only thing that I'm sure of in this whole thing is I really think that the LeBron Exquisite will finish number one overall. That was the only thing that I was really sure about. And then it didn't finish number one.
Mm-hmm.
It finished in aggregate again because the experts, there was only 45 experts, but their weight was 50% of the total weight.
Right.
The community, there was 450, but they only accounted for 50%. So
50%.
50% on both sides. The experts by far had the LeBron Exquisite number one, which is where I had it, right? And I figured the community would too. But the community had the LeBron like number 5 or number 6. And then the Steph Tops was like inverted. So Steph ended up finishing number 3. Brady finished number 2 in both surveys, the Brady contenders.
Right.
And so, but even though he finished number 2 in both, its average bumped it up to
Number
number
one.
1. So it goes
Right.
Brady, LeBron Exquisite, Steph Tops. And to me, I think those are pretty clearly the number 1 through 3. After watching everything, I think that's clear. Now, if you ask a deep basketball guy, though, and you say, hey, well, what do you think about this? Or somebody who collected maybe earlier in the 2000s, there are many of them who will say, no way, Adam. Everybody got this wrong. It should be the LeBron Tops Chrome. That should be ahead of the Steph. And I get that perspective, but I think that they're wrong. I do. And you could say at this point, well, it's because you own that plate. And I think that's a fair criticism. But I would have argued this before I bought the plate too, because there's something to be said for the fact that like that is just the only image of Steph's Topps rookie. It's his Topps, it's the missing superfractor, it's the
Right.
chrome gold refractor, which we're gonna see sell for $1 million the moment somebody lists a PSA 10 for sale, because there's only 2 PSA 10s. That is the Steph card at this point. And the NT is still high, it's still top 10. But it's not the more iconic card at this point. People don't think about it the same way. Maybe it could change if the Logoman Auto, if Alt ever was to publicly auction that or something, that could maybe change. The other key learning that immediately comes to mind. So I had 2 soccer cards in my top 25, and you can guess what they were, right? It's the Messi and it's the Ronaldo, the two Mega Cracks cards, right? Right.
Yep.
Like those are easy choices for me. Shockingly to me, right, Ronaldo doesn't make the list. Cristiano Ronaldo Mega Cracks finished like 31 or 32, but the Messi finished in the top 10. I think it was number 9. And honestly, like, this is so interesting. I had somebody who's big in the world of soccer ask me this. He said, Adam, do you think that the Messi could go down as the most iconic Panini card? And I was like, that's absurd. And then I got thinking about it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I think you're right. I think it probably is. I think the Messi Panini Mega Cracks, even though it was before the time that Panini took over, right?
Yep.
I think that's going to be the most iconic Panini card when all is said and done, which is shocking because Panini did an amazing job. But what Panini didn't have was the luxury of the ultra like iconic stars, the Kobe, LeBron, MJ.
Right.
They didn't have any of those. In fact, I would ask you, who are the 2 or 3 biggest stars to debut during, like, when we look back in 50 years, hopefully we're alive, that'd be great. If we look back in 50 years, who will be the most iconic stars from the Panini era, do you think? Who began in the Panini era?
Yeah. No, I mean, talking about basketball, definitely it's going to be LeBron and Kobe, right?
But sorry, LeBron and Kobe didn't start in the Panini era.
Oh, that's right.
So
they were after. So it'll be what, Luka, right?
It's like
Luka.
Right? He's got a long way to go. That's my point. Like he's got a ways to go to be what we need him to be, to sort of be able to like look at like the Panini era and say, oh, that can compare. Right. We don't have that right now, and I'm nervous that we won't. So anyway, those are some learnings. I know I went off there for a second, but that was a good question.
Well, I mean, I'm listening to you and I'm just thinking, right? Did the top 25 influence you to pay the full price for that printing plate?
It did.
Right.
And I know people might think that's crazy because I'm like looking at what other people are thinking, but I guess what it reinforced. Let me clarify slightly. I knew I wanted the card. I'd been trying to get the card for a long time. He had now provided a price that he was like willing to take, and I see those votes come in, and I just go, I need to have that big Steph Topps card, and I'm not going to find another one that I want more than this for my collection, because I'm never going to be able to pay for the Superfractor, and it's probably never going to come for sale. So I need to just do this. And so it wasn't that I wasn't considering it. It wasn't that I didn't want it, but it did make me go, oh, people think about, because I always hear people say, whenever you post the top Steph card, I've done a lot of stories on this card, so I know. People will say, gosh, it's such an ugly card. And I'll go, yeah, it really is super ugly. And then I'll like look at it and I'll go, I don't think it's that ugly. I think it's fine. It's a big baby face picture of Steph.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what my wife said as well. It's a baby face Steph.
And the other thing is like he's not wearing a Warriors uniform, but it does have the Warriors logo right there on the front, right corner. And it's who I remember Steph being when he was really young. And then you just ask the question, and this is the real critical part of all of it. Is there something that's going to happen in the hobby ever that's going to make us think, no, there's another Steph Topps rookie, or there's another Steph rookie that's more iconic? Like, I absolutely don't think that anything like that will ever happen at any point. So since I don't think that, and I think what I think about Steph Curry, and then I see all those votes come in, I'm like, I got to get this card. And again, I had the wherewithal to get it. And so was it way more than I wanted? Yes. But do I have any regrets? I have zero regrets, like none. that I bought card.
Awesome. I probably just want to add something to this before we close, right? So,
Take
we always
all the
had
time you want. All the time you want.
we always had surveys in the past, right? Top 10 cards, top 20 cards. People have done surveys in the past, But one thing that people have not done is the survey as comprehensive or as wide as what you have done. Okay. So this list of 25 cards across the different sports, it's an important survey at this juncture. And I think that because, and in addition, you're going to come up with that book. So the book is kind of like it's gonna become like a little encyclopedia, I would say, right? For people to come into the hobby later on and says,
Right.
what was the 25 most iconic cards, that was dated back in year 2025, from years 2000 to 2025, right? So people can look back this book and realize that, hey, okay, why? And they understand the reasons and etc. And that's gonna be, it might be a collection goal to a lot of people, right? Easily. So that Steph card, obviously there's many versions, right? There is the tops, there is the paper one, there's the chrome, etc., right? But it's still gonna be, one of the most important cards that we have ever, right? So I think you did it right. I don't know what you paid. Okay, I just cannot imagine the number, but definitely I understand the reason behind it, and I think that it is definitely going to become one of the more important cards going into the future for sure.
And I appreciate you saying that. I have no idea whether it will end up being a good investment because spending that much on a printing plate just might be insane. At the end of the day, it's a piece of metal that helped make the card. It has the label on the back, which is really cool. And you see the image and you're like, oh, that's the image. I know that. And there's some things about it that are good, but it might be an insane thing. I always, I try to, like, if I was to give anybody, like, people always ask me, what would be your number one piece of advice? And part of it would be like to get a time machine, because that was really my lucky thing. I got in early. That's what I did right. I got in early, right? But we can't get a time machine. So the thing that I would say is the real best piece of advice is I would say to buy what you like. I've said that for years. But what I really mean by that is, like, use your own brain. Don't follow the hype. Like, don't follow this is what's the next big thing's going to be, or this thing's like going out of control. You need to go get it, or you're going to miss out. People try to create that fear of missing out. I've done a really good job of avoiding that. I don't, right. When people go crazy for stuff, I almost always sort of shut down. And sometimes that's a mistake. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're right and you should have gotten into it. But what I would rather do is sort of say, I really feel strongly about this thing. And even though the whole world sort of thinks it's crazy, I'm going to do it. And that's the Steph plate, right? Like, I know that what I did was pretty crazy. But I'm not trying to talk anybody into it. I'm not trying to talk myself into it. I haven't had a moment since I got it where I went, shoot, I made a mistake. And I've done that on a lot of stuff, man. Even some stuff that has ended up being crazy valuable. I had these moments where I'm like, I don't know if I did the right thing. I haven't had a single moment. Not one. Like, I love that card. And it might not even be a card. Maybe it doesn't even qualify as a card. It's a plate.
It's a piece of metal, right?
I appreciate your words on it, because I think they're rational and good and normal, and I think you're smart. I think you're really wise. I think your questions are the best questions I've ever been asked, honestly, in an interview. And so thank you for that. And massive congrats on all the big things that you're doing. I wish we had an hour to keep talking, because I would love to keep chatting with you.
Another time, man. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, sharing all the insights, and I think we're definitely gonna get you back on one day. I'm pretty sure you have an hour more to talk on in the future.
I would love to. So I look forward to it.
Awesome, man. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for joining the podcast, and to all my audiences, thanks again for watching. Till next one, Cowboys out.